Good morning. I'm going to call the Strategic Initiatives and Planning Committee meeting of the Arizona Board of Regents to order. And can you please confirm that we have a quorum? We do. Thank you very much. We are expected to adjourn at approximately 11:15, and the live stream of this public meeting is available on the youtube.com at ABOR Live link. Before we turn to the main discussion today, we need to approve the minutes from our prior meeting. So are there any questions or comments related to the minutes? Okay, I'm going to move that the committee approve the public session minutes from April 4th, 2024, Strategic Initiatives and Planning Committee meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. Thank you. So now we get to the meat of the meeting. Today we are going to focus on the rapidly changing landscape of college athletics and how we can, in Arizona, stake out a leadership position for our universities in kind of this new era. The recent transition of ASU and U of A to the Big 12 Conference is a testament to the dynamic nature of college sports, but this is just the beginning. So we're now on the cusp of some significant developments related to name, image, and likeness, potential collective bargaining, and other forces that are driving the professionalization of college athletics, which impacts how athletes engage with their universities and how teams compete and how business models that university athletics have programs have built around historically may not function well. These changes obviously present both challenges and what I hope are opportunities that we can take advantage of. To thrive in this evolving environment, it is crucial that we understand the national trends and the implications for our institutions in particular. And today we are extremely honored to have Brett Yormark here. He's the commissioner of the Big 12 Conference, and we're asking him to share his insights on these pivotal issues. Commissioner Yormark brings a wealth of experience and a forward-thinking approach to college athletics. He has held leadership roles in several major sports organizations, including serving as CEO of BSE Global, the parent company of the Brooklyn Nets and Barclays Center, where he spearheaded significant growth and innovation. He has also served as the co-CEO of Rock Nation Unified, where he worked with high-profile clients and forged influential partnerships in sports and entertainment. And earlier in his career, he held a key executive position at NASCAR, where he contributed to the sport's national expansion and commercial success. So he obviously has a tremendous amount of experience with change management in this arena. So in over 2 decades of sports management, he's driven strategic initiatives and fostered partnerships that enhance the visibility and competitiveness of the organizations he leads. His tenure at the Big 12 has been marked by a commitment to modernization and adaptation in response to the evolving landscape of college sports. So we are very privileged to have Mr. Yormark here with us today to provide a national overview and offer his insights into the future of the Big 12 Conference and the broader implications of the professionalization that has begun in college sports. So, Commissioner Yormark, we are honored to have you here, and I will cede you the floor.
Thank you very much. Honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I love the market, and it's always nice to pay a visit here. I am joined today by the GC of the Big 12, Jessica Presnell. Jessica will speak to kind of what's going on, nationally as far as the settlement, some of the things you've discussed. She'll be limited in what she can say, and obviously I'll join in and kind of give you some color on how I'm thinking about the recent events that have transpired. Before that, I want to kind of reintroduce everyone to the Big 12. And if we go to the next slide, which I will take us to, here's some of the things I'm going to cover today. I want to walk you through the conference vision. We have a new vision statement that speaks to the new direction of collegiate athletics. I want to talk a little bit about the new Big 12, starting with our footprint. Obviously, that's changed dramatically, and will do so even more this summer when both institutions officially join the Big 12. We'll talk a little bit about the Big 12 strategy, and I do want to walk you through our organizational chart because I've been in the job now for 22 months, and I think it's fair to say we've been getting ready for this moment when you think about human capital and where we're making the appropriate investments. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about fiscal 25 and some of our priorities. I'll walk you through a couple, but specifically want to spend some time on our media partners, ESPN and Fox. Also, our commitment to the student athlete. One thing I've learned in my 22 months is that this is a purpose-driven industry, and at the core, it's the student athlete. So I want to make sure we walk through that and spend some time there. Jessica will discuss industry issues, which there are many. And then I will certainly close with the future of college athletics. And I will say that there's never been a more important time for college athletics than right now. And we'll discuss that a little bit more later, but as I see it, it sits at the front porch of every institution for all the right reasons. And it drives the ecosystem across the board. And we will discuss that a little bit more. So with that, as you get to know me, I always like to start off with a video. I think it kind of sets the right tone. It kind of speaks to where we've been and where we're going. So if you would allow me, here's a quick Big 12 video. We've become a national conference spanning 4 time zones and a footprint of over 90 million people.
Big 12 championship integrations featuring the WWE.
3-time Grammy winner Nelly.
It's getting hot in here. Oh, it's goosebumps time. This is the Phillips 66 Big 12 championship.
I ain't playing, but they see I leveled up. They fed up, I don't act like I'm fed enough. But the rank's on the way with the fleet. Take a seat, or stay out the reach. Word is mine, I ain't claiming a piece. Throne is mine, but I stay on my feet. Locked and loaded, I pray that you get low. If you rollin', I pray you don't get cold. Is you ready for war?
He's kind of dominated the Super Bowl as a Big 12 quarterback.
An incredible time for the Big 12. In fact, there's never been a better time than right now for this conference.
This conference has separated itself for the last decade as the best conference in the country. Every game in the Big 12 is going to be just like this. White knuckle, grip the steering wheel, and hold on.
Hopefully that gets you a little excited about the conference you're about to enter. Okay. So let me start off with our conference vision. This is our vision statement. And we had a board meeting last week, and we shared it with our board. And I'm going to read it because I think it's critically important. We aim to be the most relevant and nationally recognized conference, competing at the highest level and creating value for our membership athletically, academically, culturally, and commercially. The conference will act as a platform that amplifies student voices, celebrates athletic excellence, and welcomes in fans from every corner of the country. We will continually build our brand on the rich history of our league, but never rest on our laurels. We respect time-honored traditions, but embrace the shifting landscape of sports and society at large, season after season. This is our conference vision, this is our mission, and we're going to discuss here briefly how we will support that from a conference perspective for sure, and how we will work with our member institutions to do it as well. Okay? The new Big 12. So as many of you know, starting this summer, we're a 16-team member conference. Truly excited about it. You know, when I took this job, initially I aspired to be a national conference. I wanted to be relevant and on the consciousness of future student athletes from coast to coast. It was the dream scenario, candidly, you know, to bring in the 4 corner schools. And we're able to accomplish that. This is our new footprint. We're in 10 states. We have 90 million people in our footprint. We cross over 4 time zones. One of the things that I'm focused on is how do we leverage that scale in this new era of collegiate athletics, and very excited to get started. I want to talk a little bit about the new Big 12 strategy. I think we're uniquely prepared for the next chapter of collegiate athletics when you think about our staff and our strategy. And effectively, it kind of starts with me. I think it's fair to say that collegiate athletics is moving closer to where I came from than where we are today. And I'm very prepared for it, and so is my staff. The league will maintain and grow its relevancy. We will prioritize innovation, and we will execute bold ideas. I certainly believe that in this next chapter of collegiate athletics, speed matters, and we need to be bold. And just to kind of speak to some of the things that we've taken on at the conference over the last 12 months that speaks to being bold and innovative and different, we brought our commercial business in-house. Historically, that is an outsourced function, not only with members, but also at the conference level. We decided we wanted to control our revenue stream, and we wanted to build it for all the right reasons. In fact, in our first year, year over year, we're 79% above where we were in our sponsorship. We're 25% above ticket sales year over year. So that change was very instrumental in our growth and will continue to be moving forward. We believe in creating new IP and new platforms for our student athletes, but also at the conference level, and we've begun to do that. A couple of months ago, we launched the first ever permanent seat license around our basketball championship with the ability to raise over $30 million, which is critically important that we afford our schools more resources. Big 12 Pro Day was a collaboration with the NFL. I wanted to give our draft-eligible student athletes a platform, a moment where they could showcase their schools, but also provide them with career development. And we did that in partnership with the NFL, only conference to do so, and we'll continue to build on that moving forward. Big 12 Homecoming was our effort to bring what we do at the conference to our member schools. We celebrated the recent realignment that we went through, and this coming fall, we will be on campus at the Four Corners celebrating their arrival as part of Big 12 Homecoming. So be rest assured we're going to develop new platforms that are very much on strategy and on brand, but platforms that we can ultimately monetize as well. We are making a huge commitment to women's sports. We think there's incredible growth there. This year, in fact, with SiriusXM, our partner, we launched a Friday 1-hour show that highlights and glamorizes and elevates Olympic sports with a focus on women's sports. Our conference sponsors 25 sports, of which 15 are women's sports. And we're proud of the commitment we make to women's sports. And in fact, we've gone through some organizational refinement of late, and we have now appointed one of our executives to oversee women's basketball for the first time. She was doing that and more. We feel there needs to be a great focus, a singular focus, no different than what we have with the men's, on women's basketball. And that will take effect July 1. I said when I took this job, one of the main missions and goals of our conference was to get on the consciousness of future student athletes. What that means is we have to connect with them wherever they are. I refer to that younger generation as Gen Z, and we've got great strategy that affords us the opportunity to connect where they are. Social media obviously being one, merchandise partnerships being another, and using music to tell our story and connecting with notable artists. In fact, this past year for our football championship, we were the first conference ever to have a halftime show with Nelly. It showed that we can bridge the past and the future. And he choreographed that halftime show with our bands, our school bands, which was critically important. Something else to note is that as you think about growing audiences and viewership, as we got into halftime, we had the biggest ratings peak for the championship game, which meant we brought in a new audience to experience the Big 12 in a different way during halftime. So we'll be doing that more than ever before moving forward, and it's part of our long-term strategy for the Big 12. As we think about the team that will execute that strategy, when I inherited the Big 12 less than 2 years ago, we had 23 members of the front office, if you will. We lacked depth, we lacked subject matter expertise, and candidly, we lacked succession planning. All that has changed. Our board decided to invest in human capital And this is the team here that will create value for our member institutions. We have 5 key verticals. We have brand, we have marketing and communications in one. We have our commercial business, which is our second major vertical. Our third vertical is our competition vertical, which effectively houses football, men's and women's basketball, and Olympic sports. We have our Chief Legal and Business Affairs Officer that oversees compliance as well as impact. And our fifth and final key vertical is our Chief Financial Officer, who oversees both finance, HR, and office operations. But this is the team that will be interfacing with your ADs throughout the year in creating as much value as we can. Priorities for fiscal '25. So when I got to the Big 12, we didn't have a business plan. We didn't have a strategic plan. We're starting to do things a little differently. So we have a strategic plan. We have an annual budget, zero-based budget, and we're running it like a business. So I took some of the key elements of this year's business plan to discuss here today. First and foremost, maximize brand relevance. You know, that's a key for me. We might not be the biggest conference. We might not drive the most revenue today, although we're not conceding that to anyone. But developing our brand relevance is critically important because effectively that's all you have. And I will tell you that today, our brand relevance is at the highest level as it's ever been in the history of the Big 12, and it will continue to grow. We need to enhance our football narrative. I've met with our ADs. That's at the core of what we do, and we plan on doing that. In fact, this summer, when we introduce our 16-team member league for the first time, we'll do it in Vegas on one of the biggest stages possible. We moved it out of Texas, and we're excited about being in Vegas at a big stage to really start that new football narrative as a 16-team member league. We want to do all that while not compromising our position in basketball. We are the #1 basketball conference in America, and we got stronger with the Four Corners, and we need to continue to double down there. And we need to continue to double down on Olympic sports and grow that for all the right reasons. And we got better again, you know, through realignment in the Four Corner schools. For me, it's about creating value and driving revenue for our memberships. We need to be bold. We need to be different. Spent a lot of time with our board and ADs last week discussing how we're going to drive revenue, how are we going to create value for the membership moving forward. Expense management is another key. And I think we're going through that not just at the conference, but all of us are thinking about expense management differently. And I think for me, it's a distinction between investing in what you need versus investing in what you want. And we have to be disciplined about that. We have to invest in all the right areas so we can grow the enterprise, we can grow the value of our conference, and we can help to grow our member institutions. Enhanced strategies with media partners, critically important. So everyone knows we will commence a new TV deal with ESPN and Fox in fiscal '26. It's a 6-year deal. The reason we doubled down with ESPN and Fox is because we felt they were best positioned to elevate and amplify everything we do as a conference. So working with them strategically to help grow this conference, our narrative, to provide our student athletes with the biggest stages possible, very, very important. And we need to continue to invest in student athletes on and off the field. Those last two that have asterisks, I'm going to further develop those points here in a moment, but critically important as part of our business plan moving forward. So let's talk about our media strategy with ESPN and Fox. Storytelling will be critical around football, basketball, and Olympic sports. You know, our relationship with our media partners has been very operationally focused. It's now become strategically focused. We meet with them every quarter. We're very ambitious in what we ask for. Critically important that they are the catalyst for growing and elevating this conference in all the right ways. Enhanced production value to showcase our sports at the highest levels. That's another piece that we have to work with our media partners. We need our production to be at the highest levels as we showcase our student athletes and as we showcase our member institutions. We want them to expand year-round coverage of the Big 12, starting with Media Day and going 12 months a year. And we're working on how they can drive meaningful content that connects with future student athletes in all the right ways. We're also working with our partners on strategic scheduling, not only to benefit our student athletes, but to also give us the right moments to elevate and amplify our sports. As you know, when you think about football on Saturdays, a lot of clutter there. How do we become bold and innovative with our scheduling? How do we do more Friday nights, which we're going to do? How do we do some Thursday nights? Comes with challenges, but we're going to have to move in that direction if we want to further monetize our sports in that next TV cycle. And then working with them, obviously, on entertainment enhancements, no different than what we did last year for our halftime show for our football championship. These are some of the key focus areas that we have for ESPN and Fox. The conversation are led by me and my staff, and we're very excited about the commitment both have made to this conference moving forward. As we think about our student-athlete support, critically important. It's at the core of what we do, and candidly, it's at the core of who we are. When we think about scheduling, we need to ensure the well-being of our student-athletes. We are a national conference right now. So how do we think about scheduling, and how do we think about efficiencies that better position our student-athletes to be the best version of themselves? We are entering into a second year in developing the Student-Athlete Health and Well-Being Advisory Group. Members of University of Arizona and Arizona State are on that advisory group. We appreciate all their support, but we want to provide more mental health resources for our student athletes, athletic medicine, nutrition, strength and conditioning. All that goes into the conversation with our student athletes in order to better afford them the ability to be the best version of themselves. We're also undergoing a 2024 NCAA equity review and audit to make sure we're doing all the right things when we think about equity. The addition of the Student Athlete Voice Group to the conference is something that we're establishing this year. And, you know, one of the things I said to the Four Corners is bring best practices to the Big 12. You did that very well. You gave our student athletes a great voice. We haven't been as progressive in that area, and we plan on being so moving forward, thanks to the help of the Four Corner schools. We're also establishing a Big 12 Commissioners Cup starting next year that will reward for, our member institutions for both academic and sport achievement. And there's a balance there, academics and sport achievements. And we're going to get more engaged than ever before when it comes to the community. You know, being active in the community drives how people feel about you. And I think that's critically important. Something that we had never really done at the Big 12. But with the help and support of institutions like the CFP and some of the things we're doing on our own with Big 12 Homecoming, we plan on being more active in the community than ever before. Critically important. So as we think about industry issues and the future of college athletics, obviously we're going to go through a period of change. You've read about it a lot over the last couple of months. I'm going to defer now to Jessica, who is our GC and oversees business affairs, to start that conversation. I will lean in, and certainly I would love to hear your perspective on that as well. So Jessica, thank you for joining us, and I'll give it to you now.
Thank you, Commissioner Yormark. It's great to be with you all today. On the next slide, you'll see, and I think it might be in here, we're going to talk through the settlement. So as you all have been probably reading in the media, there's been a lot of media reports about this over the last couple of weeks, most of them fairly accurate, I can say, but I will unfortunately be pretty limited in what I'm able to speak to today, just given my role with the conference and the privileged nature of these discussions. That said, as has been reported, the settlements that were agreed to by the 6 defendants, which are the A5 conferences as well as the NCAA, include antitrust lawsuits that we have been defending for a number of years. In those cases, the most prominent one that you may have read is the House case. It involves student-athlete NIL. And what that means is the plaintiffs in that case were challenging the NCAA rules that prohibited the institutions from paying NIL to student athletes. That NIL is also referred to as name, image, and likeness. And so that is the scope of the settlement. And what's next is, as you all are likely aware, the settlement finalization process is very lengthy. And so we are starting that now, and with the work of our membership, working very diligently with our outside counsel to ensure that that settlement is approved. I'll jump down to the additional items. You see down here Title IX, enforcement mechanisms, and roster limits. These are items that are not directly at issue in the settlement. However, tangentially, they are going to be involved. And so we are working at the conference with our membership and outside counsel to ensure that we're providing the best information that we can to our institutions as they help navigate the settlement through its implementation. And then finally is congressional assistance. The lawsuits are just a piece of the industry issues that we're facing. There are still a number out there. And we've been lobbying Congress for a number of years now for a federal law that addresses these. And our asks are this. First, we are seeking federal preemption of state NIL laws. There are a number of divergent state laws that institutions are following, different laws, different states. So we're seeking federal preemption of those. We're also seeking liability protection from antitrust and other lawsuits moving forward. And then finally, we're seeking to clarification on employment. As you all may be aware, there's a number of employment cases that are pending. And so we're seeking for Congress's declaration that student athletes not be declared employees under those. Brett, I will turn it to you for some additional points on settlement and the industry issues.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. So I want to give you my perspective on things, if that's okay, and then obviously we can open it up for discussion. You know, I think where we landed was a reasonable solution. I spent a lot of time with my A5 commissioner colleagues, as well as the NCAA, on the settlement discussions. I think settling some of the antitrust litigation was critically important, because if not, we might not have been in the position to co-author what the future might look like. We probably didn't co-author it to the extent we would have liked to, but we did have an impact and a say in where we landed when it comes to settlement. I think settlement, for me, speaks to an industry reset, and I've said that publicly. I think the industry that we're in today needs a reset, and we're going to go through one. And I firmly believe 10 years down the road, we'll look back on it now and say, hey, it was much needed. It will be challenging. We'll have to think about life differently. But I think ultimately we're going to land in the right place for all of us. I know I speak on behalf of all of my members that we are going to thrive in this next chapter of collegiate athletics. We're going to make the right investment in the areas that we need to. We are going to compete at a high level. And the onus is on the conference to provide more resources than ever before. And we're ready for that. In fact, we've been preparing for it. And as I said earlier, I think my background, having been in professional sports and understanding where the industry is going, is well suited. You know, when I think about our staff, we have a great mix of institutional knowledge, but also progressive thinkers that have been on the professional side of things, and I think together they gel and integrate in a great way, and will provide us, you know, with the support and the innovation and the growth that we need to better support our member institutions. The next year is going to be critically important as we engage with the other Power 4 conferences, as we engage with our presidents, our board, our ADs. We have put together a settlement committee that will be made up of presidents and ADs to dig into the details. As Jessica said, Title IX, enforcement mechanisms, roster limits. There's nothing more important than right now to set that stage. And we will be meeting weekly to address all those issues and more. But I'm excited about the future. I really am. And I'm embracing it with great enthusiasm. And I think we're going to thrive. But again, it does come with some challenges, and we're going to have to work through those. But we're ready. And I continue to thank you and all the other members in the conference for your continued support through this process. It was not easy to get where we got to. But here we are. It's going to be a new model and one that we need to embrace and thrive in. With that, I'm more than open to address any questions or have a discussion about what the future looks like.
Perfect, thank you. I know I have questions, but I'm going to ask other board members if they have comments or questions that they'd like to pose at the moment. Regent Pacheco, I know you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Chairwoman Mata, thank you so much for joining us, Commissioner. What you've laid out is really exciting, and I think you'll find a board that's very supportive of exactly what you're talking about and ready to support the presidents and the schools in our system. I have a question for you in how you're envisioning fan engagement and the fan relationship, both as it pertains to the student body and also sort of the 90 million people that you referenced that are in the geographies of the new Pac-12.
It's a great.
Big 12.
I'm sorry, Big 12.
No, listen.
I'm still
you
in the
can
old
say the
vocabulary.
No. You you're not. You're part of the family, but you're part of two families right now.
Right,
officially.
this is the
So
little.
that's all good. You know, it's interesting. We want to engage the fans more so than ever before. When I got here, we hired the first ever CMO. In the history of our conference in 27 years. We never had a CMO. No one thinking about fan engagement. Who are our fans? How do we reach them? In fact, we didn't even have a CRM platform. We didn't have a database, as crazy as that might sound. All that is being worked on now and has been developed with a great emphasis on how do we reach our fans differently and more often. And we're going to make some announcements over the next couple of months about our content strategy. And it doesn't just reside in the live events. It's how do we reach our fans outside of those events because they want more of what we have to offer. If I think about just our social media engagement, we've grown our followers by over 250,000 in the last 16 months, which shows that our fans have an appetite to hear more from us. And we've got to reach them in all the different places. So it's a great emphasis. We have a sizable digital department in-house that resides under our marketing team. And we're committed to doing more and more, which is critically important. And as you said, we've got now 90 million potential fans in our footprint, and we've got to connect with them in all the right ways. And you know, one of the things that I'm thinking about when you look at our championship events, when you look at creating new IP, how do I take the Big 12 to the markets that our fans are in?
Which is now the new Pac-12, just as a
That's correct. And, you know, historically, we've stayed in our footprint. But now we're a national conference, and we have to expand our presence and where we go. So all that's being worked on. We're excited about it. It's been part of our plan, but more so moving forward.
One quick follow-up. When you talk about content strategy, are you going to have a role for the schools to play as well, should they choose so?
Yes. Yeah, everything will be in collaboration with the schools, and how do we take their content and amplify it and elevate it? How do we take conference-led content and do the same? But it will all be in collaboration with our schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Regent Brewster?
Thank you, Chair. Chair Mata. Commissioner Yormark, I loved your purpose-driven opener regarding NIL. Does the Big 12 have a focus on what it would like to see relative to the universities in the conference do relative to NIL programs? Lots of models, 501c3, you've got big business donors, you've got all kinds of ways that money can go to the student athlete. I'm just curious from a conference standpoint if there's going to be council approaches that you would see and prefer relative to managing NIL at the university level.
Well, you know, from my perspective, there's lots of different approaches, for sure. We're having conversations with our ADs on that right now. I mean, I'd like to see most of that donor support, if you will, NIL to come through the system, through the athletic department, not reside outside it. And I think there's ways that we can be very innovative and creative when it comes to NIL support. But obviously now, with a cap system, it's going to be critically important that we drive those resources in all the appropriate ways. I also want to figure out a way at the conference level how we can engage with respect to NIL. And I'm talking to Jessica about what the parameters are around that as well. It's not just on the schools, but it's also incumbent upon the conference to take a role in NIL. And we're exploring all the different ways we can do that, because we're in it together. So that is certainly something that we're exploring. What's the best model? And working very closely with our schools in order to make sure that we have best practices.
Chairman, just one follow-up. You brought it up, and again, states have moved in that direction to put NIL into state law. Arizona's at that starting point. It really seems like the legislature is ready to maybe start looking at some of those things. I know with our athletic director now in place at the U of A, involved in a former Missouri State approach. Any thoughts there? Because I heard earlier it would be great if it would be looked at from a federal or national standpoint, but the states are moving. Any counsel on that approach here in Arizona?
Well, I could tell you that from my perspective, and Jessica mentioned it, one of the things we need help from Congress on is federal preemption, so there's an even playing field. Because every state has its own interpretations, rightfully so. But that being said, I think an equal playing field and a level playing field is most appropriate, and we're going to look to get that, from Congress if we can. High on the agenda.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Can I?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, following what Regent Brewster asked, so for that kind of paying the athletes, what would they be considered? Is an employee, is a 1099? I mean, we're going to have any idea of how things are going to look like?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball on that, but I will say a couple of things. There's never been a better time than right now to be a student athlete. You've heard some of my colleagues say that, but truly there has never been a better time than right now to be a student athlete. And I'm a firm believer that with enhanced benefits, you can treat them like employees with enhanced benefits, but they don't need to be classified as employees. Okay? Because classifying them as employees comes with a lot of nuances that I'm not sure they are even aware of. And at least when I go on campus and I meet with our student athletes, because I love to engage with our student athletes, I've never heard from a single student athlete that they want to be an employee. So I will continue to say, best time ever, right now, to be a student athlete. They're going to receive enhanced benefits, rightfully so. They can be treated like employees, but not classified as employees. And that's how I feel on that particular subject.
Thank you.
Anybody else, or I'm going to ask one? Okay. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I mean, this, as a former student athlete, this grates on me a little bit. The professionalization of college athletics is definitely an opportunity. I think there's a lot of challenges involved in it. We're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids who have no real idea what their future holds, how to manage the things that are coming at them. I think there's a high opportunity for people to take advantage of them. And frankly, I think it's always been very important to me that the student part of the student athlete come first. And so I'm struggling with how I react positively to this in a way. There are a lot of issues related to the money involved and the payments that I just really don't understand. And I think, if we're now revenue sharing with students, with student athletes, are we also going to continue to provide scholarships? It seems to me that providing a scholarship on top of revenue sharing feels a bit like double dipping. Obviously expensive for the schools. And if we are, whatever change needs to happen systemically, because if you don't have people playing by the same rules from, conference to conference, it gets out of whack really quickly. So I have concerns there, and I just don't even know if we're at a point where those can be addressed. And then the question becomes, your revenue sharing, how do you address that between the star quarterback who's in a revenue-generating sport and the 12th man on the women's lacrosse team? I don't understand how that gets managed in a appropriate manner. So those were my two pieces of the equation. I just don't understand how we get through those knotholes.
And there's a lot, I can tell you we're discussing all of that. You know, you talk about the star player. And we're discussing it. You know, your thoughts about just, it's a whole new age for student athletes, and how do they adjust, and how do we not take advantage of them or those third parties? It's a great point. Even when I was at the Brooklyn Nets, you have a 21-year-old rookie who's seeing the world very differently for the first time.
Right.
And how do you work with them on orientation programs, financial literacy, and really counsel them on this new age? And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to take an active role in that. When you talk about double dipping, I think a lot of people feel that way. We're going to have to make some adjustments. You know, I've heard some ADs who have called me to say, Brett, we're going to reduce our training table. If student athletes have now resources, then we might modify certain things. Okay? I think all of that needs to be vetted out and discussed. So you're feeling nothing different than most other people are, whether they're inside the system or outside of the system. And they're all good thoughts, and we're going to hopefully address them all. Not that we have a lot of time, but settlement would take effect in the fall of '25. So we've got a decent amount of time to vet through all these issues and to get prepared. But we're on the clock now, and we are going to spend significant time with our key stakeholders on discussing these and you know, many other issues. You know, thankfully, you know, Jessica is becoming a subject matter expert in this area, and spends a lot of time one-on-one with our schools, but also in a group forum. And we'll continue to do that more as we address the concerns that each of our schools have. And by the way, the concerns are very different from campus to campus, given their situations. So we need to be very fluid in how we respond, but we're prepared to do so.
And so are the conferences all talking to each other and hoping to come up with a cohesive plan? Because, you know, certain conferences have excess funds, other conferences, you know, are struggling to pull things together. And again, if we aren't careful about putting everybody on an even playing field, let's do the sports analogy, it becomes even more disjointed and haves and have-nots.
Yes. So great question. I'm spending significant time with the Power Four commissioners. In fact, I'll be in Naples next week with them, the week after next.
Florida.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
Italian league.
That's right. Florida. And we're going to discuss many of the issues. There are issues that we're discussing together. There are issues we're discussing just as a conference. And then there's issues we're discussing with the NCAA. And I kind of, you know, look at it in three different buckets. But, you know, the relationship amongst the Power Four commissioners is very collegial. We all have a seat at the table, although we all look a little different, candidly. But we know that we need to be in this together. And, you know, settlement came about because we all signed up for it as a group. And I think in those matters where we need it to be across the board, those particular issues addressed across the board, and there needs to be consistency, we'll get there for all the right reasons.
Thank you. We do have, I just wanted to follow up quickly. I know we have two of the ADs here today, I believe. And I just kind of wanted to hear their thoughts on where we stand with that revenue sharing, fairness. I mean, have we gotten anywhere in those conversations at the schools individually? Where are we? I can't, there's, yes. Graham.
Well, Graham, you're the newest one, so you might want to go first.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner, very much for your remarks. It's a privilege to be here. And as we're thinking about revenue share, there's a lot that we don't know. This is uncharted territory. However, as we think about our great state, as we think about our university and our community, the University of Arizona Athletics, we bring $260 million in economic impact to Southern Arizona. We have a responsibility to compete at the highest levels. Participating in revenue share is part of that responsibility if we're going to continue to compete at this level. So it's our intention to participate, but there are a lot of details that we are still working through.
Thank you. Graham, I don't mean to put you on the hot seat since you're 24 hours in, a week in.
But you're on that.
Testing.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. I think we're all getting a taste of the conversations that we've been lucky to be a part of for the past several months. I've had the good fortune of being in the Big 12 meetings for most of this calendar year. And so I've been a part of the planning, been a part of these discussions as well, which have been helpful. And, you know, second, the comments that Desiree mentioned, we're uniquely suited in Arizona. Certainly here at Arizona State University. So as we collect information, make discipline planning moving forward the next 5-6 months, we'll have the benefit of clarity in a lot of these situations. But I do think we're uniquely suited here at ASU with the scale and the strength of this university behind us and all the opportunities in this tremendous market of the Valley and the Phoenix metropolitan area to be ahead of the ways that we connect, we can generate, we can build resources to support our student athletes at whatever formula gets defined coming forward. But we're very excited about our potential moving forward, and we'll look for all avenues to utilize that.
Thank you. I saw other people's hands go up as I was.
Regent Penley.
Regent Penley.
Thank you, Regent Mata. Commissioner, you spoke briefly about the distribution of the schedule with the media partner. As we all know, more midweek games interfere with student class attendance. So could you speak to where we are with the plan with the media partner for timing of games?
Great question. So we have formed a scheduling committee. In fact, they met last week in Dallas as part of our spring meetings. And we haven't made any definitive decisions, but we are asking our partners to be innovative, to help find new and different windows that we can compete in, that drive value for our schools, our student athletes, and the conference. Because much of what we do today sets us up for that next TV cycle. We have a relatively short deal. The new deal starts in fiscal 26, and it runs through June of 31. So we'll be back in the market in January of 30, renegotiating our TV deals. So it's incumbent upon us to be as innovative and as fluid as we can now to set us up for that moment. So we are looking creatively at everything right now. Nothing's set in stone, obviously taking into consideration what works on campus, what works with student athletes, but we are going to have to innovate and be bold and disrupt, hopefully in a positive way, do things that haven't been done before.
Chair. If there's anybody else, please.
No, Regent Brewster.
Thank you, Chair. From the standpoint of NIL, I've read that there is a potential to go back in this settlement process and look at former student athletes. Is that part of the settlement process in engaging former student athletes as far as some kind of outcome, some kind of financial settlement?
Well, there's the damages piece that has been resolved, and it's obviously very public. That was the back piece, backward-looking piece. That number is about $2.8 billion, okay? And there's a model that funds it over the next 10 years, okay? The NCAA has taken a piece, and so have all the conferences in Division I. And then there's the forward-thinking or the forward-moving piece, which is really coming through settlement, and that's the cap and the new revenue-sharing model that will speak to the future. but we've addressed the back damages already.
Okay.
As part of this settlement that we hope goes through.
Commissioner, we've spent a lot of time on NIL, obviously, and it's top of mind, but portal, another big aspect. The two go together. I'd love your thoughts on the portal. Mine tend to be probably a good thing initially to give student athletes an out, a way forward out of a school or university sports situation. But it seems like we are taking the portal, you know, we're seeing 2 and 3 portal outs of programs. We're seeing schools' credits not transferring. So you're going to have fifth-year seniors with sophomore credits in very short order, very possibly. Again, kind of defeating, you know, the academic side of student athlete. I'm also worried about GPAs. I think athletes that move that frequently and are allowed to move that frequently, we're going to see, you know, their GPAs suffer. So I'm curious as we look at NIL, but also the portal, kind of where you are relative to the portal and its use and maybe its need for a rethink, a relook.
Well, it's interesting. You know, when I look at the portal, coming from my background, it's the ultimate in free agency when you think about it from that perspective. And it's really put our coaches in a challenging situation, and our administrative groups, because a dynamic of roster management really didn't exist, at least to this degree, a couple of years ago. I know when I took the job in August of 22, and I did a listening learning tour, met with all the coaches, went on campus for my first 2 weeks. The portal at that point in time wasn't the topic of conversation. Today it's changed dramatically, to your point. And I get an update every week of how many student athletes are in the portal. And I think as of today, there's close to 17,000. And as we all know, not everyone finds a home. And to your point, it compromises their academic progress because some of the credits don't transfer. So it's a real issue. And, you know, one of the things I think can solve that is that when we do engage in revenue share and NIL license agreements with our student athletes, I think there's the ability to make it more sticky. So it works to minimize some of those, the ability to transfer as much as what has already gone on. And by sticky, I mean, you know, the accountability of a particular student athlete. And this is my point of view. And that's one person's. I mean, if you're going to be involved in revenue share, there needs to be accountability. And there's ways to do that in a licensing agreement with a student athlete that can help discourage the type of movement that has gone on to date. So I do think there's ways to address it. Now, on the flip side, the portal provides many of our member institutions the ability to get better quickly, which I know many of our schools want to do. So there are some benefits. And by the way, sometimes a student athlete is in a situation that's not beneficial for them, or for that matter, the school. So having the ability to change institutions for all the right reasons is also, you know, an important one. So I can get on both sides of it, but when it starts to compromise the academic progress of our student athletes, I do think we need to take a look at it and see if there's a way to better manage it. And I think as we work through the next 14 months, we'll be able to address that in a way where it kind of is commingled with, you know, the NIL and how we're addressing that as well.
I think your answer is fair because I'm in the same boat. Both have sides of the coin have good to them and benefits to the athletes, benefits to the schools. But it seems like you sometimes tilt so far one way that you don't find out fast enough some of the repercussions. Many of these student athletes transfer promised better than they had before, and they end up with less than what they had before. And they're right back in a situation where probably they're going to portal again. So again, I look at both and say, hey, NIL, it's the game of the day. Portal, it's the game of the day. But how the adults in the room look at it and put it together so everybody wins, I'm still searching for that outcome.
Yeah. And you know what? Listen, we also have to figure out how do we better manage those third-party influencers. Because it's not always greener, on the other side, as we all know in life. And sometimes our student athletes are taken advantage of and are sold a bill of goods, and we need to manage to that dynamic as we move forward.
Thank you.
So thank you for the question.
I'm actually going to ask the two ADs to come up to the table as well, because I think we're going to have some, specific Arizona questions, and rather than try and find you in the crowd, I'm going to put you in the front and put you at the principal's table. So I'm kind of back to the professionalization again, and the transfer portal is a good example. One of the things that we in Arizona have been very focused on, and it is part of head coach contracts, it's part of AD contracts, is the academic performance of their teams. We really do believe that student athletes are students first, athletes next. I don't know exactly what the statistics are, and I'm sure it varies from conference to conference, but the actual percentage of college athletes that go into professional sports as a career is quite low. And so I'd like to understand how we maintain the focus on the student athlete and not design a system around the significant minority of students that in some sports could have gone directly to a professional developmental league, or our one and dones, which is mostly basketball, mostly men's basketball. But other sports don't have that. They really require the physical maturation of an 18-year-old before they can actually play professional sports. So my concern is that we're developing a system that is so focused on the few that we need to make sure it serves the many, and that the value of a college degree is something that I think it's hard for students. I mean, it's a conversation in the country writ large at the moment, but I think there's a tremendous value in for those students and those student athletes who are not going to proceed into professional sports to be able to get what they need and not lose themselves in this kind of professionalization of the college system. Thoughts? Everybody's pointing at each other.
Let me go first. I meet with hundreds of recruits and their families. And I come at this not only as in the chair that I sit in as the director of athletics, but I'm also a mother of a student athlete. I'm a product of the student athlete experience. And when I meet with these recruits and their families, I talk about the 50. And what I mean by the 50 is that the average, so let's just take easy math. I'm a lawyer, so I'm not that great at math. But if a student athlete graduates at the age of 22, and also going back to your point about going to the NFL, et cetera, those aren't long careers.
Right.
I think the average NFL career is like 4.3 years.
Right.
And so if we just do easy math, you graduate at the age of 22, and then say your average life expectancy is 76.6 years, and you go into the NFL and you play for 4 years, that takes you to 26. How are you going to impact the world for 50 years? And so one thing we're really proud of at the University of Arizona, and I'm sure my colleagues at ASU are also proud of their academic prowess of our student athletes. We have a 3.34 GPA, cumulative GPA amongst all of our student athletes. But one thing that will be a point of emphasis is that 50. How are our student athletes going to impact the world when they graduate? Our expectation is that 100% of our student athletes, when they graduate, that they're going to either be in graduate school or have a career and are making an impact. And we're going to measure that, because if you say you're going to do it, you got to measure it. So that's going to be something that's going to be a point of emphasis for us. And then one thing I'm also concerned about is financial literacy. And Commissioner Yormark spoke about it. But all of a sudden, when we go into this rev share model, and I appreciate very much the productive conversation, there's a lot that we don't know. And this is a new age in college athletics. But when we go into this, all of a sudden, our young people are going to have access to perhaps revenue they've never had in their entire lives. How are they managing it? What is this FICA that they're speaking about?
Welcome to taxes.
I know. Thank you to my colleagues who remember the Friends episode back in the day. What is FICA? But in all seriousness, planning for the future and thinking about taxes, and we've seen it in the NIL world, but now as we're evolving into rev share, we've got to make that a central component as part of this new rev share model. So.
Just to add in, and I thought what Desiree said is dead on, but even as we orient new classes that are coming into schools, I mean, no different than what they do in the professional league, and they have orientation programs, and they have financial planning, and they have, you know, all these subject matter experts that address things that are so new to our student athletes. That's got to start earlier now, on campus.
Yes, and it has to be real. It can't be just window dressing.
Yeah.
It has to be authentic, and then we have to measure it. We have to look at our results, and we have to be held accountable for those results.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm going to echo the sentiments that you're hearing from others. You know, we announced earlier this week our academic progress rate reports and leading the Pac-12, and we know it positions us very well as we transition to the Big 12. And the commissioner mentioned how the Four Corner schools add a lot to the conference membership in terms of our presence as the student and the student athlete, and we're looking to continue that. That'll be a key part of our vertical moving forward, is that we do want high performance outcomes in athletics, but we're very much focused on the student part of the student athlete. And our model, our structure reflects that. I grew up in the baseball world, and so a lot of times in a baseball recruiting conversation, you're helping a young man and their family understand at the high end of the sport, you're gonna have a decision make on, do you take your draft opportunity coming out of high school? Do you enroll in Division I baseball and then have to go through 3 years or become 21 before you're draft eligible again? And a lot of times we get that question from a family on, how do I make that decision? I've got a chance to, you know, accomplish a professional aspiration at 18, 19 out of high school. I've got this tremendous opportunity to come to ASU and represent the university through baseball. And that's a very personal decision for the family to make. Where we would typically answer that and continue for all of our families in recruiting conversations is, you've got to look at the lifetime value of a college education. And to Desiree's point, Mother Nature's undefeated. We've all experienced that in different ways in our own lives. Certainly any of us with athletic backgrounds, the playing days will end. Our responsibility in intercollegiate athletics continues to be, how are we preparing the person for life after they play? And we'll never waver for that. And we can be relevant in all the ways that we need to moving forward as college sports evolves. It's not better or worse, it's just different. And you hear a lot of commentary about meeting the student athletes where they are. That's a focus of ours. And now they have unique opportunities that none of us were afforded to, but that's a great opportunity. And that's a way for us to restructure our focus and help them understand that, hey, there is a benefit as a student athlete to build out a commercial skill set and have that be a part of your preparation for life after competing and whatever you're competing in. And that's where, you know, NIL, in my opinion, very much comes into play. And we've spent a lot of time here at ASU over the last 6-7 months building out infrastructure. Where that uniquely benefits a student athlete, in my opinion, is you look across our 26 sports, 650 or so student athletes, a lot of them have been playing their sport since they were 4 or 5 years old. And they and their family have made this commitment year-round in some instances to perfect their craft of sport, to earn the opportunity to play and compete in a university setting, and in this case, you know, Power 4 at Arizona State University. That comes with tremendous sacrifice in how they can allocate their time and attention. And so for an elite student athlete looking to earn that chance to earn a scholarship and play at the next level, they don't have a chance for a high school job. They may not have a chance for internships or work studies or study abroad. And so NIL and this evolution of college sports really enters an opportunity for them to get that skill set real time. And it is very much, as Desiree mentioned, our responsibility on how do we resource and coach and educate them through this journey on how to manage their time, how to manage their attention, how to focus on, you know, the key aspects of a day, not get distracted, keep their attention on all that they're looking to accomplish in the classroom athletically, and then embrace this opportunity to build a skill set. And that point, when they do end up finishing their playing career at whatever point, if that's 22, 32, or beyond, they now have a vocational skill set. They now have a professional network. They now have an ability to understand what life after being an athlete could look like and some preparation and readiness to accomplish that. They don't need to go in an interview and say, I've got a great education and a degree from a wonderful university and I played a sport. There's got to be more to that. At some point, the intangibles of hiring an athlete are certainly attractive to a lot of companies, but when an athlete can say, I am accountable, I am a good teammate, I am disciplined, I am organized, all these wonderful attributes that an athlete's going to bring to the table, they're also prepared for an area of a business or a profession that they want to pursue because of these opportunities that are now afforded to them. And so it's a great question. The student part of a student athlete is what we're all committed to in this industry. How that gets defined, to be determined in the coming months. But I know speaking for ASU and I think for U of A, University of Arizona,
Be
that
careful
we're-
on that one. No, just
we will not compromise from the focus of what we're here to do. This is still higher education. They are still student athletes. They have new abilities and opportunities that are afforded to them. That's a wonderful outcome, as the commissioners mentioned. And so embracing that, but not losing focus on the point of what we're here to accomplish in developing young people.
One thing I'll add is, so we're about to launch in the next month or so our first ever Student Athlete Alumni Council at the conference level. Because I wanted to be able to tap into the knowledge of former student athletes, many of which have made it beyond the sports they participated in. And I can tell you that in some of the short conversations I've had with many, the role they want to play is to reinforce to our current student athletes why an education is so important, why it helped prepare them for life after being on the court or the field. And, I hear stories about that all the time. So excited about launching this new initiative at the conference level, but really engaging our student athletes with former alumni so they can reinforce the importance of an education and what it really means to get them prepared for life after sport.
I'm a Big 12 student athlete alumni.
I know you are.
I'll
Iowa
be on
State.
your council.
Yeah.
Regent Pacheco.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Amata. Since we, as Desiree said, we're in uncharted territory, and we have some very significant and important issues that we're going to be learning about over the course of the next 18+ months, I would like to make a request that we have a regular conversation with the ADs of all 3 universities so we can get sort of that frontline feedback as to what's happening, what you're learning, how the conversations are occurring nationally, what we should be paying attention to from a governance standpoint, and then also what help we can give you as you're sort of mapping this road, if you will, or mapping this territory. I really think it's going to be important, and I think Regent Brewster would join me in emphasizing how much attention this gets in the sort of set of all of the issues that we deal with. And I would love for us to have just really good and consistent information that we're giving our constituents.
Yeah. As the front porch, it is obviously visible.
Yes. Yes. And that's a good segue to my last slide.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could.
Is there, can I go on the next slide now or no? How do I?
You're doing it.
Oh, you're going to bring it up? Okay. Kind of gets to my front porch.
There you go.
Okay, let me go to the next one. Okay, the future of college athletics is bright. And despite the challenges, despite all of our conversations today, it really is bright because it fosters such incredible opportunities for our student athletes in all the right ways and gets them really prepared for life after sport. And I said earlier that, athletics certainly sits at the front porch of the universities, and I firmly believe that. And I didn't spend a lot of my time on campus, obviously over the last 20 years, but when I went on my listening and learning tour when I first took the job, I realized that it was very evident that it drives the complete ecosystem that we live in. When you think about enrollment, when you think about donor support, when you think about philanthropy, et cetera, et cetera. So as we think about the next future, or the next chapter of collegiate athletics, I would just impress upon all of you not to lean away, but to lean in for all the right reasons. Lean in. Be a resource in every way possible. Financially, obviously, critically important. There hasn't been, as I said before, a better time than right now for the student athlete, but I feel the same way for collegiate athletics.
Commissioner, can I chair the committee that's going to look at renaming?
Renaming the...
Everything.
Yeah, you can be on any committee you want.
PAC, big, 1216, I'm confused.
Well, you know, it's interesting. So we have this CMO, as I mentioned earlier. And if you saw on on the end of the video, it said, we've always been greater than 12.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay? And that's a tagline we use this year, not because we were going to 16, but 12 it means more than just how many members. You know, this past year, in fact, on the heels of what Amazon does, Amazon Day, we have our own 12-12 Day now, where we celebrate 12. And when you'll see that throughout the year. So I don't know if we're going to change that number to 16 or not, because I think we've created a lot of equity behind it, but I'm open to any ideas you have.
Again, I'll chair the committee.
Yes, whatever you want.
Self-nomination, you
All
know
good.
what that is, right?
The committee of one.
I like that.
Oh, I love it. Yes. Oop.
Oh, thank you.
Regent Penley?
Chair Menson, Commissioner, could you comment on structuring and restructuring athletic departments as you've observed various changes around the country? I mean, we've heard people talk about affiliated not-for-profits, affiliated for-profits, private equity investment, a whole set of issues as people are confronting the transformation of athletics and struggling to find structures that really work in a whole variety of ways, including for the institution and its various constituents.
I haven't candidly thought about structure with the ADs on what's the best structure on a go-forward basis, and maybe that's something I need to lean in on. You bring up private equity. I have thought about private equity a little bit. You can get on both sides of private equity. I like private equity because I think they chase growth, and they see something in our industry, and they see this growth trajectory that we're on. So in some respects, to me, that's a bit of a validation of where we're going, because there is a lot of growth potential here. But I haven't really thought about what's the best structure for the athletic departments. I will say that as I think about the next chapter, and I'll certainly articulate this with my ADs, who I consider my colleagues, we have to focus on the things that matter most and that create value. You know, they're going to have some big decisions to make moving forward. They've outsourced a lot historically. You know, the question is there a balance there? And it's not for me to make that decision, but everyone else. You want to control your revenue to the extent that you can and grow it. So there's going to be a lot of decisions to make. For some, outsourcing makes a ton of sense. For others, it might not. Maybe there's a hybrid. Who knows? But there's going to be a lot to think about in every facet. And as I start today's conversation, you know, we're going to go through a reset. And that means that everything needs to be considered. But we're in a great industry. It's vibrant. It's dynamic. It's domestic. It's global. We impact so many different lives. And as I said, we got to continue to lean in for all the right reasons and invest in all the right places, because we have a chance to do something pretty special. And that's how I think about our conference. And you've got my commitment that we will, at the conference level, work tirelessly, hand in hand with our board, with our ADs, to try to create value to move this thing forward. So I'm thrilled to be here today, and anytime you invite me back, I'll be here. Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the regents? Yep, Regent
One.
Brewster?
Thank you, Chair. As we build the excitement for the Big 12, in your tie line, bigger than the Big 12, there's 16 universities today. It's going to attract other universities that want to come to the Big 12. Strategically looking forward, are there plans in place? Are we looking at other key universities to join this wonderful club that is the Big 12? And if not,
Hey, wait
and
a
if-
minute.
Put him on the spot.
Yeah, well,
So, you know, it's a great question. And the way I'll answer it is, I was told many, many years ago by a mentor of mine, Brett, in life, maintain optionality. Critically important to always have options. So all I can say is, I always have optionality as a conference. And I do think people are going to be attracted to our conference for all the right reasons. And it will be incumbent upon, our board and our ADs to make those decisions. What my role as commissioner is to bring opportunity and possibility to the table. And then let those that effectively own it make those decisions. And I will continue when the time is right, to do that.
Regent Mata?
Thank you. I have one more comment, and when we talk about private equity or outsourcing. So if we have private equity, I believe that they will control more and we will have less control. Is that a statement, or I just wanted to make sure, because we're still in that side of the equation where, okay, how do we do that? And we outsource, it's the same thing. You contract with other people, which is not our employees, but they're the one who is guiding. We cannot do or make decisions. We gave them the performance to present. We have deliverables, but how do we have the control? Because we right now control everything. And that's my comment about private equity in control, outsourcing. They have part of the control, although we give the deliverable. It's just something that we need to think about it.
I totally agree. I think governance is critically important if and when people decide to explore private equity. I do think it's going to come into our industry for sure. When, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think it's going to be here, and we'll have to figure out if that's a direction any of our member institutions want to go in, or for that matter, even the conference. But I think governance is critically important, the structure, the model. And when I think about private equity, I just don't think about the financial resources. I also look at the strategic side of it, because you can get both with the right people. The strategic, the vision, the resources, and the financial. But it all comes down to structure. And what that structure is and what you're giving up, for those resources. I've always lived in an environment where I like to control things. Right? Some people have called me a control freak. All right, I don't know if I want to give up too much control. I'm probably like you a little bit from that perspective.
Exactly.
Right? So we'll have to figure all that out. But again, I just think given the world we're moving to, we've got to consider no option's a bad option. And by the way, you don't have to do anything. But I think you need to be mindful of what's happening around us, because I also don't like surprises. Not to say we have to be the first mover in anything, but I don't like surprises. So I think it's important that we understand what's going around us. We do our appropriate due diligence, and then we determine if it's in our best interest to move forward or not.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You could give up
Thank
our
you.
tax status.
Yeah.
Thank you, Noah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, anything I can help anyone with?
Now, I think I'm going to ask one
You've been
final
terrific.
question.
Thank you.
And it's to each of you. And I mean, all three of you are relatively new in your positions. There has been a tremendous amount of change in the timeframe that you've been in control. And so I'm going to ask each of you, I'll start with Commissioner Yormark, because you're the longest tenured of the group. And then I'll go to Desiree and then to Graham. But what is it right now that is your biggest concern in this arena? What, the proverbial, what keeps you up at night? But I want to flip it, and I want to say, what's the greatest opportunity you see for the Big 12 and for each of the schools individually at this time?
I'll tell you that for me, everything keeps me up at night. And I mean that. I just, because I'm an all-in type of person, no different than Desiree and Graham, and we live in this space. It's who we are. It's part of our DNA. For me, the thing that keeps me up at night is to make sure that our member institutions land in a great place, and that they can adjust to this new chapter, and not just adjust, but thrive. And it's incumbent upon me to create the right structure in an effort for them to do that. And I do think about that a lot, and I've thought about it a lot. But I also see big-time opportunity for value creation. I think there's so many different things we should be doing at the conference or collectively that can drive value for our member institutions, things that we haven't done before. And we as a conference have started to do those things. So I'm excited about the future and how we can build together. I look at our conference specifically. We're 28 years old. I classify ourselves as a mature startup. when you think about some of the legacy conferences that exist out there. We're just getting started. And trust me when I say this, our best days are ahead. I firmly believe that. We've got great ADs, great board members, great institutions, incredible brands, wonderful media partners. I mean, there's a lot of good. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that comes with that. So that's what I'm excited most about. But again, the biggest challenge for me is to make sure that our schools land in a place where they can continue to thrive and have the impact that they're making today. And that's what we're focused on.
Desiree?
I think my answer for both would be people. I am always worried, am I providing enough for our people, whether it's our student athletes? We've talked about the changes and the evolution, and how are we meeting their needs? Are we providing them the championship experiences and resources that they need? I worry about our staff. Our staff has gone through a lot of change, and massive changes are coming. So I worry about them. I worry about our universities and making sure that we are that incredible front porch for the university, and that's a responsibility that we take very seriously. I love the U of A. The U of A gave me, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the University of Arizona. The College of Law prepared me really, really well for these ever-changing times. So I worry that we're making sure we're all giving our 100% best effort to represent the institutions that we love. But I'm also hopeful. Josh Baker is one of our football players. Isis Bay is one of our women's basketball players. I knew Isis Bay when she was a freshman at UNLV, and I ran into her yesterday. I moved my office over to the Ginny L. Clemens Academic Center, and I did that very intentionally because I wanted to be around our students. They bring us the energy, they bring us the joy. And when you have a long day and you're thinking about how am I going to pay for rev share? I mean, well, goodness, how are we going to structure this? All the myriad of challenges that Graham and I are constantly thinking about. I get to look out and I see Isis, and she came by to see me yesterday, and she was telling me about why she came back and what she's looking forward to, and hearing her hopes and dreams, and seeing Josh Baker start an internship in the athletic department. That fills me with great joy, and it reminds me why we do what we do. So people provide me hope. I get worried that we're not providing enough for them, or that there's too many changes and challenges, but I also know that those of us in this great state, we're resilient, and we are going to take these challenges, these headwinds, we're going to take them on, we're going to see them as opportunities, and you know what, we're going to make them a competitive advantage.
Thank you.
I've got no concerns. I'm eager for information. And
You just don't know where they start.
maybe that's.
God bless you, you guys have been here 48 hours.
Yeah.
He's sleeping really well.
New guy can say that. No, we're eager for information. Moving forward, certainly these next 6 months will be critical and really important in terms of understanding the landscape moving forward. We have very important decisions in front of us. That's not lost on any of us, and the weight of that responsibility is felt. But it's a wonderful privilege and responsibility to be in a position to use this information to make responsible decisions on behalf of ASU. And shifting it into the second part of your question, this is a privilege of a lifetime for me. I've said this publicly over the last week and a half, that everything good in my adult life happened the moment I came to ASU. The reason I knew about ASU was because of athletics, and so there's no better way to emotionally connect people and a community to a university than through college athletics, certainly today. There's a lot of conjecture, there's a lot of opinions about the state of the industry. It just shows you that a lot of people really care about what is happening in this space, and that we don't lose the focus of student athletes and what we're here to accomplish. And so, there are really important, heavy decisions coming at us. We need information to make responsible decisions. I've gotten really good advice from a colleague lately, a member of the Big 12, another AD, who said, you're going to get a lot of pressure to make quick decisions. It's more important to make the right decision. And valuing information and threading that needle between being agile and decisive, but being responsible with the information you have to make the appropriate decision. That's what excites me moving forward. Is we're in the middle of change, but we can use information to make great decisions on behalf of change and leverage all the opportunities as we enter the Big 12 and as we enter this new place in college athletics. I'm, again, very bullish about what's happening here at Arizona State University. This market, it's been my home for 25 years. My wife is a product of this environment as well. She was the volleyball letter winner at ASU. And so I hope that our example as a family is motivating and inspiring to other prospective student athletes, and certainly our current student athletes, to understand if you invest in this experience while you're with us on this campus specifically, the output and the outcomes that can be realized as a result will change the pathway of your life. And my family is proof and parcel of that. So just very excited to take it as it comes moving forward. Long days, but we know that that comes with the territory. We've all spent our time in sports in our entire careers. We're built up for that part of it. And again, as we get information to make best decisions moving forward, that's where our focus stays.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I can't tell you, I think this was one of the best discussions we've had in terms of strategic initiatives. And so I look forward to more regular conversations with the ADs from all three of our schools, just to kind of see where we're going. And a lot of, as I said, dust in the air, I think, at the moment, and I'm waiting for a little bit of it to settle and looking forward to that. But again, thank you, Commissioner, for being here with us, and for the ADs as well. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And we are then adjourned.